Hi, my name is Narada Danvantari. I am a sacred geometer, singer-songwriter and multimedia artist. My work is about higher dimensional patterns and how they are relevant to sacred geometry, artificial intelligence and spirituality. Check out the free gifts at my website, angelicinterface.com, where you can browse the whole of my lavishly illustrated book, Understanding Sacred Geometry and the Flower of Life. May the flow always be with you. This video will help you to understand the incredible geometry of the six-dimensional toroidal hypercube. This beautiful toroidal 3D projection is my own discovery. It is remarkably compact and symmetrical and achieves the very important feature of all the lines being the same length. This form is, of course, not the full six-dimensional cube, which simply would not fit into our three-dimensional space, let alone the two-dimensional space of a computer screen. But, just as a three-dimensional form can cast a two-dimensional shadow, technically known as a projection, onto a page, so too a higher dimensional form can cast its three-dimensional projection down into three-dimensional space. Rotating it like this can help you to get an impression of its three-dimensional form. These images are stereoscopic. You may like to try crossing your eyes to see if you can merge two of the four images to create three images. Then the central one will assume its full three-dimensional form in your mind space. Here is a page from my book on sacred geometry that explains the technique in more detail. If you are interested, just pause the video. Being able to see stereoscopic images without a viewer like this is a useful skill to have, so I will let the animation run for a while so that you can practice. Higher dimensional forms like this one are truly mind-expanding. As our brains try to make sense out of what we are seeing, we intuitively perceive that their logic is not of this world. In the 6D cube, 6 lines meet at each of its 64 points, which are technically known as vertexes. It is interesting that the ancient and venerable Chinese Book of Changes, called the I Ching, has 64 hexagrams, each consisting of 6 lines, and we will return to this later in the video. Here I have colored the lines in 6 colors: red, green, blue, magenta, yellow and cyan. Look carefully and you will see that one line of each color meets at every one of the 64 vertexes. As we move up through dimensions, I find that the cubic forms are the easiest to understand, partly because we are so familiar with right angles in the modern world. Also because it is so easy to understand the progression from a line segment to a square to a cube, doubling the number of points each time and moving at right angle to the previous form. The four-dimensional hypercube can be conceptualized as a cube moved at right angles to the three-dimensional space we believe we inhabit, and doubling the number of points from 8 to 16. In cubic forms, this same process is repeated each time, doubling the number of points for each dimension. Therefore, a 5-dimensional cube has 32 points, and a 6-dimensional cube has 64 points. The Wikipedia page on the 6D cube will also tell you that its 64 points create 192 lines. These form 240 squares, 160 cubes, 64 dimensional hypercubes, and 12 5-dimensional hypercubes. It may sound a little unbelievable that the connections between 64 points arranged like this can create all these interlocking forms, but in the next few minutes I will help you to see how it all fits together. Let's start by removing all the lines, leaving only the 64 vertexes, the points where the lines meet. From this angle we see a central point surrounded by 4 circles of 12 points. But as soon as we begin again to rotate the whole form, we see that there was another circle of 12 points hidden behind one of the circles, and also another 3 points hidden behind the central point. 5 circles of 12 points makes a total of 60, plus the 4 central ones to bring it up to 64 points. From this view here we can see that all the points are aligned in 4 planes. It really is such a beautiful and elegant geometric structure. Let's add lines of one color back in. It doesn't matter which color we add, as all 6 of them form the same identical pattern of lines. There are 32 lines of each color, giving us 192 lines in total. Notice that every line connects between the adjacent planes. When we add a second color, you can see that many 4-sided forms appear. Although they seem to be rhombus or diamond shapes, they are all perfect squares in the 6-dimensional cube. They only appear to be distorted because of the angle at which they are projected down from the 6-dimensional space into our 3-dimensional space. This is unavoidable. When projecting or folding a geometry down from a higher dimension, it is not possible to maintain all the angles. Once again, it does not matter which color we add back in. Every pair of colors makes a set of 16 squares. Here the red lines are shown connecting to each of the other colors in turn. Note that in every square, opposite sides are the identical color, and this is also true of every cube and hypercube, and the whole 6-dimensional cube. Each of the 6 colors is aligned in one of 6 directions, like 6 axes passing through the center of a clock face. These directions are each serving as one of the 6 dimensions. As we add a third color into the mix, can you see that the squares are now all forming cubes? Again, it does not matter which color we add back in. Any 3 colors will form a set of 8 cubes. As I'm sure you can calculate, there are 20 possible unique sets of 3 out of the 6 colors. As each of the 20 sets of 3 colors is an interlocking set of 8 cubes. 8 times 20 gives us a total of 160 cubes, which means that we have found all of them. So far in this video, we have been building up our understanding by adding a dimension each time. We could continue like this, but I think you will learn more if we take a jump forward and show you the reverse procedure by dismantling the 6-dimensional cube into its lower dimensional facets. If we start from the full 6-dimensional cube and turn off one color, we are separating it into 2 5-dimensional cubes. This is directly analogous to the way we could remove any 4 parallel lines from a cube and separate it into 2 squares. Depending on which color we turn off, remember each color represents a dimension, we will split it along a different axis. Here we turn off the green lines to reveal the 2 10-sided 5-dimensional jewels. If I remove the 32 vertexes of the lower figure and all the lines connecting them, it will be easier to see. There are 6 pairs of 5D cubes like this, depending on which color you remove. Each is a dimension, remember. So these are the 12 5-dimensional cubes that form the outer boundary of the 6-dimensional cube, in the same way that 6 squares form the outer boundary of the 3-dimensional cube. Now, if we remove one more color, let's say blue, then you can make out that the 5D cube has been split into 2 4D cubes. They are admittedly quite squashed and overlapping with each other, but the connections are still correct. I'll remove one of the 4D cubes to make it more clear. Okay, now let's back up to the whole 6D cube again and remove first the green lines to break it into 2 5D cubes, and then remove the blue lines to show the 4 4D cubes. And then when we remove one more dimension, let's say the magenta lines, we now have our 8 cubes again that we were examining before. Congratulations for following me this far. I'm sure if you go back over the video, you will now at least know where to look to find all the components that make up the 6D cube. I hope this tour of its facets and faces has helped you to begin to understand the beauty of this simple yet complex, at least to our minds, form. Before we finish, I would like to share some other observations that may make it easier to navigate the structure in your mind. As I mentioned before, at every one of the 64 vertexes of the 6D cube, 6 lines meet, one of each of the 6 colors, Each pair of these colors connects to form a square. This means that 15 squares meet at each of the 64 vertexes, and it is a good exercise to find them all starting at one of the outer points and selecting each pair of colors in turn. Whilst all higher dimensional forms are interesting to contemplate, I suggest that because of its incorporation of the numbers 6, 8, 12, 16, 32 and 64, the 6D cube has a particular beauty for the human mind. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, another lovely thing about the 6D cube is that it can be used as a geometric layout for the 64 hexagrams of the famous ancient Chinese divination system called the I Ching, or Book of Changes. The 64 hexagrams can be arranged on the vertexes of the six-dimensional cube, such that each hexagram is connected to the 6 hexagrams that differ from it by only one line. Since the purpose of these 64 hexagrams is to represent all the phases of cyclic change between the polarities of existence, the 6D cube could be said to represent the structure of the whole Book of Changes, all possible worlds, in one web of interconnections. This fits in with my interpretation that, at least symbolically, the fourth dimension clearly has something to do with time. The fifth dimension is then related to alternate timelines, and the sixth dimension contains them all and represents completion, wholeness, and unity. Thank you for sharing this exploration of the toroidal six-dimensional cube. If you are interested to have a physical focus for higher dimensional energies in your home or temple, please check out our range of higher dimensional forms at sacredgeometryemporium.com. We offer the 6D cube in color, as you see it here, and also in gold-plated brass. You may also be interested to check out my latest website, angelicinterface.com. It's a multimedia communication about beauty and meaning as higher dimensional patterns, and how this is relevant to artificial intelligence, sacred geometry, and spirituality. I suggest that the superintelligence that is beginning to manifest through our AI technologies is to a great extent due to its ability to identify and create higher dimensional patterns in the data. These are the patterns that contain the meaning and beauty within the information. If you are intrigued to learn more about my work with sacred geometry, angels, and AI, check out the 3 free gifts at angelicinterface.com, including access to the digital version of my book, Understanding Sacred Geometry and the Flower of Life, a higher dimensional perspective on an ancient wisdom stream. That's it for now. My name again is Narada Danvantari. May the flow be with you.